Hello everyone, welcome back to the Country Living Homestead. If you're new here, my name is Shelby and thanks for coming along on our journey. If you are a returning subscriber, thanks so much for sticking with us as we figure out this whole YouTube thing. So what I'd like to talk to you about today are various items that you can use to stock your pantry. These are basically the main staples that we like to keep in our pantry. I'm not trying to tell you that you should do the same thing because everybody's diet is different. Everybody eats different things. Some people don't eat meat. Some people don't eat sweeteners. So that's not the goal of this. The goal of this is just to maybe provide some inspiration for some things that are really great staples for the pantry. So I'd like to start with raw honey. Raw honey is a great natural sweetener. It's full of vitamins and minerals. Of course, never give any type of honey to a child under the age of a year old. And I'm not a doctor, but honey has even been used medicinally. So this is a fantastic thing to keep in your pantry. And one of the best things about honey is it's not going to go bad. So that's something that you never have to worry about with keeping honey on your shelf. I mean, they have literally found honey in tombs in Egypt that was totally safe to eat. So honey is definitely a great long-term storage item. All right, and the next item on my list is vinegar. I actually store both white and apple cider vinegar. I use it mostly for food preservation, especially the white vinegar. You can do pickles, you can do pickled beets, you can do pickled eggs. There are just so many things that you can do with vinegar. You can use it as a cleaning product in your house. So vinegar is definitely one of those staple items. So the next thing I would like to mention is milk. I keep both powdered milk and canned milk on my shelf. And the powdered milk is great for baking. I personally don't like powdered milk mixed up and then pour it on like a bowl of cereal or an oatmeal, but I do like it for baking. It's great for that. You can actually even make yogurt with powdered milk. And I really like the evaporated milk because it's great for a coffee creamer. And actually, if I had to put, a stored milk on top of a bowl of oatmeal or something, I wouldn't have a problem using the evaporated milk for that. It's pretty good. So either way you decide to go with it. I know some people don't use dairy, so if you don't use it, just skip over this one. But we do use it here, and it's very handy to have these things on the shelf. I know there have been so many times when I've been in the middle of baking a recipe of some sort and it calls for milk and I'm out of milk because my husband drinks a lot of milk. So it's oftentimes we run out of milk unexpectedly, but it definitely works great in baking. Some people don't mind it on, cereal and oatmeal, so whatever works for you. But I definitely recommend having some sort of milk on your shelf. All right, so this is dry corn, or some people call it dent corn. I really like to keep this on my shelf because we have a grinder that we purchased last year, and we actually got a corn auger to go with it. So we can grind this corn to make our own cornmeal. You can actually, once you have it ground down, you can use it to make cornmeal mush, which is a really cheap breakfast option. And it's something that you might be able to afford to spare to help others that may be in need, because it is such a cheap breakfast. I mean, obviously you could eat it anytime. You don't just have to eat that for breakfast, and we really love to have cornmeal with different recipes like chili and soups and things like that. So I definitely recommend keeping some dried corn. It also has a long shelf life, so that's another great thing about it. So I think we can all agree about the importance of salt. Your body needs salt, and it makes pretty much every food more appetizing. Almost all recipes call for salt, so it's great for preserving food through fermentation. If you want to ferment some pickles, or if you want to ferment sauerkraut, you're definitely going to need salt for that. I actually store 2 kinds of salt. This is Redmond's real salt. That is what we use on a daily basis, and I normally use it for all my ferments and pretty much in all of my canning. But I do also store some iodized salt just so that I have some extra on the shelf. I usually buy this Redmond's real salt in a 25-pound bag, and that lasts for quite a while. So I definitely recommend having salt on your shelf. It never goes bad, and it has a ton of uses. So definitely consider keeping some of that on your shelf. So next up is sprouting seeds. Sprouting seeds greatly increases their nutritional value. They're great to have in your storage for times that fresh food may not be available or it may be hard to come by, especially during the winter months. They're very easy to sprout, and it really only takes a couple of days for them to get started, and then you can, once you start those, the next day you can start another batch, and then the third day you can start another batch, and then you can kind of keep a rotation going to have fresh food during the winter months. So another fantastic storage item. And you can get different ones. You don't have to use mung beans. That's just what I happen to have on hand, but you can get broccoli. You can get all different kinds of sprouting seeds. Number 7 on my list of things to store is rice. Yes, I know everybody says store rice, but there is a reason for that. Actually, several reasons for that. White rice has a long shelf life, 10 years or more when stored properly. Not to mention, it's so versatile. It pretty much goes with anything. It can be eaten for breakfast as a porridge. It can be eaten for lunch or dinner with vegetables and a little bit of meat. It even makes a great dessert called rice pudding. So it's easy to store. Rice is definitely something that we love to keep in our food storage. And guess what goes fantastic with rice? You guessed it, lentils and beans. They are great on their own, great with rice, pretty much good with anything. You can these, and you can actually also buy them already canned, but I feel that they do store best in their dried form. Although you will notice if you keep them past probably 3 years and then you try to cook them, they can tend to be a little chewy at that point. The texture is a little bit different. So if I have them on my shelf for about 2.5 years, at that point, I like to try to can them, and that will prevent that from happening. If you have never cooked dried beans, lentils, peas, and you want to have them in your storage, I would really recommend that you start putting them, start cooking them now and introducing them to your family as part of their normal diet, and get used to cooking them, because they do require, not the lentils really, but the beans do require a soaking period before you cook them. So it can be a little bit different than just cracking open a can of beans already cooked. So getting used to preparing these ahead of time is a great idea. All right, the next item to make my list is ghee. Ghee is just butter with the milk solids removed. It's great for giving foods a buttery flavor. For example, when you're frying eggs and you don't really want them to maybe taste like lard or olive oil, ghee is a great thing to fry them in. Tastes like butter. The difference between ghee and butter, like I said, with the milk solids being removed, that makes the ghee shelf stable. And it also has a higher smoke point than butter, so it's also good for roasting vegetables and things like that. Definitely a great thing to keep on the shelf. Another thing that I personally like to keep on my shelf is unsulfured blackstrap molasses. It is a good source of certain minerals and nutrients, such as iron. I also like to use this in my garden a lot. Pepper plants, I find, really love blackstrap molasses, and it gives them a nice boost. So that's one of the main reasons that I do keep this on my shelf. Fruits and vegetables are extremely important to have in your diet. We do grow a very large garden every year, and we do preserve as much of that as possible. We also preserve our own fruits. We can them. These are peaches, but I also like to have some canned foods that I bring in from the grocery store just as a backup, and some things I don't can myself, like I don't can collard greens. So I will buy those from the store, and then I have those on my shelf for when I need them. All right, number 12 on my list is canned meat and fish. I realize that not everybody eats meat and fish, and that's totally fine. Just skip this one if that's a problem for you. We do eat meat and fish in this house. I do purchase a few things from the store, just things I wouldn't normally can myself, just to have on hand. These I like to keep on hand because they're great for lunches, but we do can a variety of meats. This is a jar of chicken. It doesn't look appealing, I know, but it's actually very tasty. And my husband does a lot of salmon fishing. So every year we will can up quite a few jars of salmon. So if you'd like to see a video on that this year, leave a comment below and let me know. So these are wheat berries. I keep flour on my shelves, but just in a small quantity. I do keep a larger amount of wheat berries because once the flour has been ground, it's prone to going rancid. It doesn't store as long. So I keep these wheat berries on hand because they store a lot longer. However, if you're considering storing wheat berries as part of your food preps, just make sure you have some sort of a grinder because you will want to grind them into a flour so that you can make bread. And let's face it, bread has been a staple food for humans for thousands of years, so that many people can't be wrong. So we do enjoy our bread and biscuits and things like that around here. So I do like to keep wheat on hand. And this wheat, if stored properly, could last for 20 to 25 years. So a fantastic long-term storage item. All right, everyone, last but not least, are some treat items. We do keep a few treat items on hand. This is blue popcorn and also some chocolate bars. Having treats on hand during rough times, they can provide a mental boost, especially for kids. So we do like to keep a few of these items on hand. Thanks so much for visiting the homestead, and we'll see you next time.